Hello. So this video isn't really gonna be a how-to video. It's gonna be more of a watch me make something kind of video. Basically, I was too lazy to film, and then I just kind of did it, and I only filmed parts of it. Anyways, this is what I made. It's a Delfonics utility pouch. I've never actually heard of that before until I looked up a bunch of YouTube videos of like people scrapbooking, and everybody seemed to have this pouch. So being the person I am, obviously I had to make it. I figured that someone else may have made it too, and someone did make it. So I basically followed their YouTube tutorial. She has a whole video explaining like the steps more thoroughly. So I would check that out too. Okay, so now I will just show you what I did film and talk you through the steps so that it kind of makes sense. Okay, let's go.
So this is the pattern piece that I drew out based on the free PDF that was provided. I just didn't want to print it out, and I traced it out on my outside fabric and my lining fabric. And now I'm just gonna cut out what I traced. So because a few of these pieces are the same, you could technically stack and cut them, but I traced each one out so I could plan it out a little better. For the longer pieces, I like to cut on the fold so that I know it's even on both sides. So I only trace out half of it and I fold it before I cut it. Now you should have 16 pieces in total, and we're ready to start sewing. So the first thing I did was hem all the pocket pieces. I'm doing a super basic hem where I fold the raw edge in like a quarter and then fold it over again and then stitch along the edge. If your fabric has a good side and a bad side, you want to make sure that you're folding it up on the bad side. So right now the bad side of the fabric is facing up. If you're using fabrics that are a lot more slippery and harder to control, then I would recommend ironing or pinning before you start hemming. But the fabric that I'm using is really easy to crease, and I'm really lazy, so that's why I'm not doing that. So I'm using this lighter weight cotton that I found at the thrift store as my lining, and it's also pretty easy to just fold and hem. But because it is more lightweight, I did end up adding some interfacing to make it stiffer. I would have ironed on the interfacing before I started hemming it, but you live and you learn. This is also one of those things where I would recommend chain sewing. It just makes things much easier. So this piece right here is the zipper piece, and I thought that I didn't cut the zipper piece big enough, so I stitched two pieces together to make it wider, but I was completely wrong and the original measurements on the free pattern are correct. Anyways, basically this is how you want to sandwich your zipper so you can sew along the top line over here. If you're confused, the zipper is right side up and the good sides of the fabric are facing inwards. Because I added the extra seam, it is easier for me to tell which side is the good side and bad side. And at this point I also switched my presser foot out for a zipper foot. The only hard part about sewing zippers is when the zipper pull gets in the way. So what you want to do is leave the needle in but lift the presser foot up, and basically just wiggle the zipper until it gets to the other side. There's really no avoiding that unless like you take the zipper tab completely out, but that's too hard. So this is what it should look like after attaching the first side. And now we're going to repeat the same steps but on the other side. Again, good sides of the fabrics facing each other and sandwiching the zipper in between, and sewing across the top like last time. After sewing, I gave it a good press. I'm kind of pulling and ironing the fabric away from the zipper so the seam lies flat. At this point, I've already attached the side piece to the zipper piece. but before that I should have added a side tab that I'll talk about later. So right now I'm just doing a basting stitch along the perimeter, which is basically just a straight stitch but set at the longest stitch length. We're basically doing this so we can keep the fabric together and acting as one. This is where I cut off the excess fabric, and this whole piece is now the side piece. And here I'm showing you the different pockets that I made with my lining fabric, so this will be on the inside. And like I said before, I ironed on some interfacing, which is why the back sides are white. I also did a basting stitch around each panel. And this is what I did for the outside fabric. There are like 2 layers of pockets for this one. And for the pleated pockets, it's basically just trial and error until you get the spacing right. You basically shift the fabric like half an inch to the left before doing a straight stitch. And where the bottom where I have it pinned, that's where I push the extra fabric to the left and right. And I stitched along the perimeter again. Then I stitched the outside and the lining fabric together. So the wrong sides are facing each other and we want the pretty sides showing. Then I attached the side band to one of the panels. I did have to attach and reattach a few times so I could get it the way I wanted. And I'm just showing you some slits that I made to the side piece so it rounds the corner better. This is probably the most difficult part, so just take your time. And I sewed in the side tab while I was putting together the 2 ends. A thing to note is that the side panel will be too long, so you have to measure and cut to size. Then attach the second side. The next thing I'm gonna do is cut off the ugly seam allowance. I basically cut like a 1/4 inch away from the main seam that's holding it all together. And I finished it with some pre-made double fold bias tape. Once you flip it right side out, you are done.
So inside is pretty spacious. It fits like my iPad mini pretty well. So inside I got my pens and highlighters, and so I have 2 inner pockets right here, and I have one big inner pocket that velcros, and then I have another pocket that velcros, and I got 2 things right here, and then this pouch and like pencil pouches. Oh, and then 2 like pockets here too. Also added this tab that she didn't have in her video. I wish I added them to both sides because I think that's what the real pouch has, but I decided that too late, so I didn't get to put it in, and I don't want to redo it and like take out stitches and stuff because that's just way too hard.
And here's the final look of the pouch. Oh, also the zipper is upcycled from an old sweater.
Here's Fitz again, and he has come to say bye-bye.